which has to do sort of with the message, which is weird because it's really like a stupid comedy. But it's also got a message in it which I think really speaks. Well, it speaks to some people, which is that it's a message about tolerance. It's a message about inclusion, and it also has like nudity and those things. Not you.
It has a little bit of nudity. Now, when you...
All right, now, Don, I don't want to have to come over here.
That's funny. Now, Curtis, Booger, you were about as different from the character as you can imagine. And so I'm curious, when you first read the script, I know initially you weren't going in for that role, but you eventually landed there. How did you create such a believable and relatable character?
Everybody's going to be in the same boat on this one, because I think mainly people didn't want to have much to do with this movie because we thought it was so low rent. But I think with Booger, what I did was what I learned in theater school, which was to write a biography. I wrote a biography of Booger so I would understand his misogyny and excuse it. And that's what I did. And we also worked a lot on the script with the director and the writers. That helped. We had some rehearsal, which helped. So there were a lot of things that helped me get to who Booger was.
Hello!
Hi, Brian.
Wow. I just wanted to add, in regard to Curtis, for those of you who don't know him personally, I've met him a couple of times, he is actually Shakespearean. I mean, talk about the dichotomy of Booger and Curtis Armstrong, the man. It's really astounding, the job.
And of course, he's also Metatron. Anybody's a superhero. So, yes, you have the same type of relationship with your character. I mean, completely opposite in life versus...
I'm not gay. And I'm not anti-gay. I'm just anti somebody sticking something in my booty. And by a show of hands, how many people are not anti-gay? They're anti somebody sticking something in their booty. How do y'all did there, raise your hands?
Please still control me, javelin.
But really, when you portrayed the character, there weren't a lot of out gay characters in film and television at the time.
It was very accepted back then, especially with the brothers. My name was, that's him. Now it's okay to play gay, and back then, one of the reasons I did it was because there were limited roles for people of color, and at that time, I think the leading role was this. I'm gonna cut you, man! I was like, I need to do something different.
Well, you definitely did something different, and I think it's appreciated by the whole community, so kudos to you.
Yeah, and as Curtis said, it turned out to be, and I really don't think, sometimes you're involved in these things that are bigger than you, and I think this thing just got bigger than us at some point. I don't think any of us thought, trust me, when we were behind the set, none of us thought this was even going to be big. So it was like, let's just make each other laugh and have as much fun as possible. That's probably all that's going to happen.
Well, isn't that kind of like the thing about projects is you never really know, and sometimes the ones you think are not going to have any longevity are the ones we're sitting here 35 years later talking about. Yeah. Robert, you, to prepare for the role, I believe you rushed yourself at University of Arizona?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, I definitely want to hear about this.
Well, what happened was I convinced the studio to let me go to Tucson, Arizona 2 weeks early so I could find my character. And all I brought with me were the clothes, the wardrobe for the boots. And it took me 3 days just to work up the guts to leave my hotel room. And I left the hotel room, and oddly enough, nobody reacted. So I thought, I guess well, it's just a regular guy. Okay, cool. So then Anthony Edwards shows up, and we decide to rush, because it was rush week at U of A, University of Arizona. And we're going through all these frat houses. They all know that we're there shooting the movie, except for this one, where the guy at Dorset Wig Center, the head guy, Biff, is in the back. And, I don't think he knows about it. Come on. So we go to the deep inner sanctum of the frat house, and there's Biff with the hard hat on with the 2 beers stuck in it, the hoses are coming down. And he's bopping out, you know, and I go, hey, Bill, these guys want to rush. And he looks at us and goes, no way, man. That's how we knew we had the characters in a good position.
You knew you had locked it in. That's amazing. Julia, Boys Club here. What was the process of filming like for you?
Fantastic. I don't know if my mic is on. Oh, it is.
You're good.
I mean, I got to be with all these guys, surrounded. I had the most exciting time. I mean, these are all great guys. And funny enough, Ted was kind of the opposite of the movie. Initially, personally, we learned like 10 years later, felt like an outcast from us, the cast members, because we were all gelling and I was already going with my nerds.
You'd already transitioned.
I'd already transitioned, that took about 10 minutes. But, and so, you know, we later brought Ted in, you know, and made him feel loved, but it was really interesting to be up there. It was also a great thrill to be the, I guess, apple of people's eye or whatever, as far as like the cheerleader girl. And
You were the hot one.
You can say it.
I was never a cheerleader, but for real. But I am like a cheerleader for these guys, and I always love this movie. I'm sure I thought it was going to be a big hit, right? I'm sure I would feel that way.
Absolutely. Andrew, you were young.
I was a young man, yes.
What? 12, right?
I was 11 and then turned 12 on the set.
What did your parents, did they let you read the whole script? Did they prep you? What was the process like for a preteen going into this type of a comedy?
There was a little agony on their part, I think. They were nervous about it and about the content, but they decided to go through with it. I'm not sure what convinced them to go ahead. It was the first movie that I had gotten a role for, so I think it was just exciting. But it's interesting because the next role that I got, they passed on because the script was too controversial, and that turned out to be The Stand. I missed out on being that movie.
Oh, wow.
So I'm glad they greenlighted this one, though. It was pretty fun to be a part of, and I'll never forget it.
And what were your peers at high school saying when the movie came out?
Hey, you're that nerd. Like, I heard you. You're that nerd, right? You're that nerd. You're that kid, that nerd, right? Yes, I'm that nerd. Yes. I'm the nerd of the event. So that's how that went.
And Brian, you literally have been working since you were a very young child. A little boy. When this script crossed your desk, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, it was quite a stretch for my character because I had called for an Asian. Oh, wait a minute. My Asian accent is done a bit more Yiddish as I go along now. But it was one of those things where you read the script, and for a lot of us, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue within the script for each of the characters. And so, but we went into this thinking, okay, could be fun. It was really, as they were saying, it was not necessarily thought of as going to be a big hit. And so we all get together in Arizona, and what's unusual is we had a chance to work 2 weeks prior to shooting. So we got to know each other. Hello? So we had the chance to get to know each other before actually shooting, and it created a bond with us that maintains to this day. I mean, I love everybody here, I have to tell you, and it's so exciting to be with everybody. I just love it. That's true. And then it just so happened that I think our relationship kind of shone on screen. People related to it, and it kind of hit.
Well, absolutely. When you're having fun making a movie, when you're working with people that are enjoyable, and I mean, it definitely, the cast gels, and you can see it when you watch. I mean, I think that's part of the reason the film has had such longevity.
Well, actually, we were working with people that follow them.
Yeah. Okay, Donald, it's your turn now. You waited patiently.
I can see you're very quiet.
You've been
I was
very.
just thrilled to get the darn thing.
You've been very
read,
good.
so I didn't even know it was in the script.
Your character, I mean, so memorable. One of the most memorable screenshots now of you. How did you create the role of Ogre?
You know, the luckiest thing was that actually I was a stuntman at the time. And I told Curtis this story, that when they hired me, they had a little dialogue in there. And then when I read the script, it was all taken out. I was a stuntman, I guess I couldn't read. So then as the movie went on, they kind of put it back in and put it back in. For me, it was awesome. It was 3 months of the best time I've ever had. And these guys really are.
And you're, I don't know if this is true or not. I read this on the internet, so it has a 50% chance of being true. But
I wasn't naked in the park.
Are you creating a beer right now named after your character?
We had a beer called Ogre beer, yeah. My partner and I, we own a bar in Chicago, right near Wrigley Field, and we decided to have a beer, and we decided to call it Ogre beer. Well, the stuff actually took off. I mean, back before there was, the beers were really happening, and the beer took off, but the problem was the company that we brewed the beer through decided that it was their beer, and we had legal problems, we had stuff, so.
You're like, but it has my name. So how can it be your beer?
No, right? And my picture on it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't drink much beer. That's a lie.
Anybody believe him?
No,
I know you guys
you're a bunch
probably.
of darn nerds because you're sitting here listening to it.
I know you guys probably have questions too, so I know there's a mic over here and in that aisle as well. If you guys want to line up, we'll get to as many questions as we can. And in the meantime, Robert and Curtis, you guys hosted a fun little reality show, game show. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? And it's coming back, right?
Yeah, well, what happened, Bobby and I would get together periodically and just talk about, mainly about talking about our kids and that kind of stuff. And also, parenthetically, how we could cash in on Revenge of the Nerds somehow. Because it seemed like a no-brainer for us to do, and we came up with this idea of King of the Nerds as a reality show where the nerds would have a nerd house and all of that. And we talked about it for years, I think.
Literally years.
And we would, every once in a while, we'd go, well, whatever happened to that nerds thing? And then we did finally find some executive producers who were actual nerds. And the best part was they actually had experience in reality television. And so we worked with them and they helped shape it. Because we didn't know anything about reality television. And it wound up being a hit on TBS, which was marvelous, and it ran for 3 seasons. We mourn its loss all the time. In fact, Colby from season 3 is present somewhere. Is he around here somewhere? I believe he's here. There he is!
All right.
Colby, ladies and gentlemen!
Stand up to the team, Colby.
Colby, why don't you come up to one of the mics up here and tell us what it was like being on the show. Come on. I think everybody would like to hear from
You have to.
from that perspective. Absolutely. And while he's working his way up, I just want to talk a little bit about, this movie, like we said, came out 35 years ago, and the term nerd and geek has obviously evolved over the years. And what used to be the redheaded stepchild, is now what's cool and popular and in vogue. This was really the first showing of that change. And I'm just curious if you guys have people coming up to you in a setting like this, telling stories one-on-one about how the movie has affected their lives.
Well, I was actually with Curtis in somewhere back east, not here, but at one of these shows, and a guy came up to me and said he'd driven for 8 hours, and he just wanted to tell me that the movie saved his life.
Wow.
That's pretty heavy.
I mean, a lot of people did have that experience, and part of it had to do with the fact that, because of nerd being in the title, it was the underdogs succeeding, but it was also coming at a time when the convention world was really taking off. It had been around for a while, but it was really becoming prominent, and the internet was becoming prominent, and the fact of those things happening at the same time our movie came out meant that nerds who had been wandering in the desert, looking for others of their kind, were finding that they really had a community out there if they knew how to find them. And that was what the huge thing was. It was part of a wave of things that were happening at the time for nerds. And the fact that we came out along the same time, it felt like we were the ones that started it. But it wasn't that we started it, it was just we were lucky in our timing. And it made
However,
a difference.
you know what? I never heard the word or the term nerd, to your point, until we did the movie, and then we were just lucky. We were just lucky. Yeah, that's the way it is. Sweet, Mr. Friend. And so, no, but I hadn't heard the term nerd until we did the movie, and from that point on, I think is really what really term
I
to
think
the vernacular of America.
Yeah, and to answer their point, I think it really made outcasts first realize that they were the original outcasts and the others like them. Previous to that, you just felt you were the only one, and that was what you were left with. I think they realized that the movie allowed them to see that there were others, maybe not necessarily exactly like them, but like them. and even when it comes to Ogre's role, there were folks that were like him.
That's what I was going to
who
say.
didn't realize that they were like him until they saw him. They're like, hey,
Right.
that's me. And I think that's what everybody saw in a different way. They saw themselves on the screen, and it allowed it to be accepted. And then little things that happened, like you said, like Bill Gates, these nerds that started to make money. So all of a sudden it was okay to be smart and not look like a perfect, Robert Redford. You could still be smart. And it just allowed folks to accept themselves. I mean, it sounds kind of corny, but it really did.
No, and even like beautiful people, like, attractive people. I mean, I think that's what attracts Betty to Lewis and, all human beings is like their inner stuff going on, their inner soul and their warmth and all that stuff. And so even my character, who's one would think, because I'm supposedly the hot girl, thanks Larry, and, actually felt that way and felt really accepted and, anyway, I mean, it was meaningful to me too. I mean, it was no stretch to like run down on that field with Robert and all of my nerds, and I don't want to sound corny, but I think it really did reach, even people that you wouldn't think were nerds. Or
Can I make one quick thing, which is what I discovered in the last couple of years? The word nerd, when you're talking about it, we never heard it before. Nerd, the word nerd was actually coined by Dr. Seuss for a book called If I Ran the Zoo, a really early, an early Dr. Seuss book. One of the creatures he had in his zoo was called a nerd. Within a few years of that book coming out, by 1950, there was an article in Newsweek which mentions the fact that the word nerd, had become a popular slang expression in Detroit, Michigan for a spaz, or, that's how they phrased it at the time, spaz or geek. And it was like probably out of the jazz scene in Detroit, the music scene in Detroit, because that guy's a nerd, And that was my hometown, as it turns out. I was born there 3 years later, so it was a perfect place for me to be born. But that's how far back that word goes as a description of, people like us.
That's really interesting.
Wasn't it
Yeah. I didn't know to credit Dr. Seuss.
I
for
can't
her.
say anything with this man.
That took way too long. You told me you were going to keep stuff short so we could
No, nobody told me to keep it short.
I remember reading that somewhere. Oh, wait a minute. It was in Curtis's book.
Oh,
Curtis Armstrong, if you don't know, by the way, has an amazing book right there.
There you go.
It is. I highly recommend it. I was so sad when I was done with it. I was telling him last night when I saw it. I would just, because it was such a great. It's a terrific book.
thank you.
It's a good read.
Colby, let's talk about season 3. Tell us what it was like. First of
Tell
all,
them what you told me, Colby.
Okay. So the thing about season 3 was, of the experience in general, the idea of being able to present yourself as who you are and feel awesome doing it. So my background, I teach high school. And I was on a reality TV show, and nobody thought less of me for doing it. Nobody thought that anything that I did was trashy. Nobody thought that I did anything that was backstab. Like I said, and I rapped, and it wasn't that great. But they were like, you put yourself out there, you did everything that you could, and that's more memorable because of it. And above all, the idea that this is a reality show where the people responsible for running it treat you like your family. Like, I have met Curtis's and Bobby's family. I've hung out at Curtis's house. And this is something that I did not envision myself doing, like, in this life. And, like, above all, like, we go out, like, the people who have been on this show, like, people I didn't meet until I was on, people who were in previous seasons, they reach out to you because they have this shared experience. And like we go out and we hang out with each other. You know, probably the person I've hung around the most in this show was Ori. And Ori and I are completely different kinds of nerds, but we were able to bond over that shared experience. And it's one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I think you brought up a really good point. Another thing about, being a nerd or a geek, nowadays that means embracing your passion, whatever that is, and not being afraid to be passionate about things that excite you and show that openly. So, yes?
I'm sorry. Don wants to say something.
I've never met your family. Or yours.
Well,
Is there a reason for that?
yeah, no, it's just because you live in Chicago.
Are you inviting yourself over to Curtis's? He obviously needs to have a dinner party for all
I
you
know,
guys.
I've got to work more with Don. I'm sorry.
And something else that is interesting, and they're not telling you, they really had, did you guys have like really incredibly gifted people on that show?
Well, yes, absolutely.
They were the real deal.
They were the real deal.
I mean, rocket
Everybody-
scientists.
Colby was three-time Jeopardy champion?
No, more than that.
What, 2 times?
Tournament of Champions winner?
Did you go against Ken Jenkins? Next time, right? Maybe.
We knew we knew you from somewhere. Like, that's that guy.
Well, Brian, you also of the police franchise, but an interesting piece of trivia about you in particular that I like because I'm a Trekker is you did an episode of the original series and of TNG. How many people recognize you from those episodes, or what do you recognize most for? Police Academy or Nerds or?
It's kind of a combination of a lot, and if I go to, I've only been to a handful of these Comic Con things.
Well, welcome.
Right. Thank you. But what's interesting, actually, speaking of the Star Trek thing, I'm told I'm one of the now only living. There's only a handful of us left that has done the original Star Trek and come back to do another one. And I kind of am thinking, okay, I was a little kid when I did that.
But it was
I'm
such
probably
a
gonna be the
popular
last one
episode.
standing.
You probably will be because you were what, you're 5
I
or
was
6?
a little kid, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
It's a really popular episode too. And then when you did TNG, everyone was obviously excited.
And so yeah, it's so funny because I think I look so different, so many different things, but I cloud myself, I guess. I don't know. But so many people off the street or wherever I go, a lot of times they'll come up to me and say, "Oh," but I can't really. Even Nerds, I'm so surprised that they even recognize me from Nerds because I think I look a little different. I don't have my glasses, it's not produced back, and I lost the accent. So.
True. Larry and Julia, tell us about the casting process for both of you.
Ladies first.
Yes, you can. Yes, go first.
The casting process. Oh my gosh. Okay, well this was Susan Arnold. I went in and I read with her first because I was new into California from New York and had done soap operas and stuff and other things there, but finally made the move. And so I went in to meet Susan, and I read the script, and I tried to prepare it, but kind of like the guys are saying, for some of us, there weren't a lot of words. And so, I did everything I could to kind of think about who she was and all that stuff. And I went in and I read it, and Susan said, okay, I want you to do exactly that when you meet Jeff. And I'm like, okay, exactly that. That's like almost a threat to me. I was like, oh my God, no, what did I do? But anyway, oh no.
I wasn't paying attention.
So, I guess, so I met Jeff, who was adorable, and he put us all on film, and I don't remember seeing necessarily the guys there. I'm sure I saw some other girls that happened at the time that I was there. But I just remember having so much fun with him, and he made everything so easy, and made it seem like everything I did was just perfect, and of course that helps. And so it was a very good group, really nice from the beginning, and until Don came on the set, everything was great. No.
Well, Donald, what kind of stunts were you doing prior to your acting gig?
You know, the story for me, and I've told Curtis is the stunt crew actually called me because I did stuff on Mcginley Island, windows, and all I did all kinds of fights and off the air ramp and shoot, And I actually kind of liked it. I mean, I like doing stunts. But this coordinator, Terry James, he calls me up and he goes, listen, they're looking for an ogre and they can't find one. Why don't you go in there and read? So I went in there and, I read the script and I thought, but I stunk and, they're never going to hire me. And then they called me back and they said, they really, really like you, but they think you're too old. And I said, okay, how do I fix that? So I had a beard, and so Terry says, dude, Jeff Canoe just told me, shave your beard now and get down here as fast as you can. So I roared myself all the way from the Valley to 20th Century Fox with, blood, from where I was shaving. There was tissue and blood, And I went in there and read for it. And then, as I got home, my agents called me and they said, you got the part. And I was like, what?
So first audition
It was
ever.
crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, I mean, I never in my they read a zillion people for this character. And I was at the right place at the right time. And it was the best thing that ever happened in my career.
It's, you know what? I interviewed Jeff for the book, and the way he tells the story, he said, so, I didn't want him because he looked too old to me because of the beard. And then he was persuaded. Susan said, we're going to read him again. He went, no, I don't want to read him again. She said, oh, come on, we're going to read him again. He's shaved. He looks a lot younger.
Yeah.
So it'll be much better. And then you walk in, and Jeff said, it looked like he'd been in an accident.
It looked like I'd been through the window of my car. I'm like doing this while I'm reading, And I'm nervous, and I was shaking, I was sweating. I mean, I looked like, I just, did drugs and jumped through the window or something.
I mean, it's so iconic. I mean, you are so iconic. I can't think of anybody else playing Ogre other than Don.
I was so fortunate, and then actually, to tell you the truth, I never thought I was funny. I mean, I thought my wife thought I was funny, but my dad used to say, "What's so funny about that kid?" So I never thought I was funny, and then when I did the movie, and I realized I was funny, and then I did Lost in America, and Albert Brooks thought I was funny, and I'm like, I think I'm funny. So that was really, it was the greatest experience.
I just know nobody said nerds like you said, and when it came out your mouth, that was it. It was done.
That lower voice of mine was, nerds! Good job. Is when I went down, nerds! Who can do that?
And what's funny is there were maybe 5 guys saying it, but the only voice you heard was
mine. Nerds!
So Larry, let's talk about your casting process and how you developed the character.
I'm one of those, in character guys, so I obviously did not come like this, looking for Lamar. I actually went into the office, and back then, I was in dance class. So in dance class, you had to put a little knot in your t-shirt, And you had to just walk a little differently and like things in other colors. So when I went in there and did this, like they said, there were no roles, so they just asked me to dance and talk to them, so I danced and talked to them, and raised my voice a little more, and just kind of things just come over you if you're an actor. And they said, "Are you gay?" I was like, "Of course." And I went home and I told my agent, "I think they think I'm gay." And she said, "You got the part." I said, "I'm gay."
And when was it revealed that that was, in fact, you just being an incredible actor?
Oh, thank you. That was $5. You put a little extra on it. But, no, yeah, people...
Don, that was the question you got more than anything?
More than anything. People talk to the movie. In fact, I was a biker, so I hang around with a lot of bikers. So they were always going, "Is that dude really gay?" And I would go, "No, Tiny, he wasn't gay."
For sure not.
I mean, I have nothing wrong with it, but I had a lot of folks walk up to me and say, "Thank you. Thank you." Like, for what? Because you just said everything I wanted to say without saying it. I was like, "Well, thank you." Once again, you just don't know. And it's really hard to, I mean, right now, 35 years later, it's easy to look at it and go, "Wait, you did a great job." Back then, I'm telling you, to a man, we all didn't think this was even going to make it.
And then after the success of the first movie, you guys waited, and then around came the second. And what were the thoughts then as it evolved over the years?
They had me cheating on Robert, so I said I'm not doing the script. Or Lewis, I should say. They had me like 6 pages in a hotel room with a jock in Florida, where all these guys went without me. And I'm like, I absolutely can't do that. And then there was talk that they would change, the director said, "Oh, we'll change the script." And I got word that maybe the script wasn't being changed that much, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not doing it. And then I got married to Robert in the next movie. Yay! And had nerd babies.
Well, once again, I want to invite you guys, if you have questions, come up to the aisles. And Curtis, I want to talk to you about your performance in Ray, which was...
Well, that was very different.
Yes, very different.
Wow, that was very different. That was, I went in actually to read for a different role. While I was reading, it was one of those things where actors know when you're in the room and nothing is happening, and you see the glazed eyes of someone who realizes this is a horrible mistake. And Taylor Hackford, at the end of the read, said, "Would you read for Ahmet Ertegun instead?" And so they gave me the pages, and I went out, and I knew who Ahmet Ertegun was. I had all those recordings. And then I went back in and read, and he said, "Will you shave your head?" And I said, "Yes," because that's what you do. And he said, "Okay." And then I got the job like the next day.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And you were incredible in the
Thank you.
movie. Yes.
thank you. But let me tell you this, when it comes to nerds, my experience with the audition was that I was reading Gilbert. I was reading Anthony Edwards' part because there weren't enough lines for Booger in the script originally. So they were giving me, it was sort of a bait and switch thing. They said, "We want you to come in and read Gilbert." And I went, "Oh, great, it's a lead role, and Robert Carradine is the other guy. This is awesome." So I went in and read for it. I read for it twice, I think, and then they said, "Well, actually, that part's already been cast." And I said, "What the?" And they said, "Yeah, Anthony Edwards is playing that." And I went, "Who?" Anthony Edwards. And this Carradine I knew. And they said, "But they really," you remember what you said, "they really liked you." And that's what, that's the kiss of death. When you've read for something and they say, "Well, they really liked you." Because God knows what you're going to wind up getting as a consolation prize. And they said, "They want you to play another nerd." And I was going through everybody in my mind. I was going through, well, I'm too old for Wormser. And obviously, it's not Lamar. And Takashi's out of the question. So I figured it was either Poindexter or Booger. And I told my agent on the phone, I said, all right, here's what I'm saying to you. I said, if they offer me Poindexter, I will do it. I can make something of Poindexter. But I am a classically trained actor. I am not going to get on the screen and pick my nose and belch in this low-rent, stupid movie. I'm not doing it. If they offer me Booger, no. Just say no and hang up the phone because I'm not doing it. My agent says, what, really? And I said, yes! Poindexter, yes. Booger, no. And I slammed down the phone, and then my agent called back a few minutes later and said, well, they offered you Booger. I said, okay.
And that is the classic life of an actor, you know?
What?
The classic life of an actor, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's because, you get off your high horse and make yourself feel better, and then to say, well, how much is it?
So this is a good question. Curtis, you can start, but everyone feel free to hop in. Like obviously there's a lot of aspiring artists, actors, directors, writers in the room, and at conventions like this, what advice would you give to someone wanting to get into this business?
Don't. Yeah, you better love it, because if you don't love it, it's going to beat you up. It's going to beat you up anyhow. So you better love it, and I'm kind of a Nike fan, more of the phrase, just do it. You're not going to know it till you do it, and you have to do it sometimes to know that you shouldn't do it, or that you should. And it was kind of like the film, maybe beating a dead horse here, but the script was not Romeo and Juliet when we saw it, okay? But each and every one of these guys saw a way to bring something to their character that made it breathe life into it. And that's your job as an artist, to see what others don't see before they see it. Everybody can come and see Nerds now because they've seen it. The trick is, what's the new Nerds? What's the new Star Trek? What's the new film? That's your job to do it, or the next artist's job to do it. And that's a lot to take on. You gotta believe in yourself before anybody believes in you. And that's the tough part. But if it makes sense to you, do it. Just because it makes sense to you.
Absolutely. Good advice. All right, we have a question over here. Hi.
So Robert, I was wondering if you could do a laugh for us, and was it hard for you to do that laugh?
That's what we all do. He really is a nerd.
Well, Andrew, we can start with you on this question. We talked a little bit about, the meaning of geek and nerd, embracing your passions and not being afraid to exhibit those passions. What are you passionate about? What do you do in your spare time, in your personal life?
My spare time, that's the thing. I'm a musician. I play guitar, I play piano, I just picked up the clarinet last year as a lark, and I really love it. It's a great instrument. I don't know if you're a clarinet player. That's pretty geeky probably, but nerdy probably, but that's music. I'm a big musician.
And how about you, Brian?
Actually, I started a company that actually 60 Minutes is going to be doing a piece on it. What's interesting is I was very fortunate to be introduced to this genius who developed a renewable energy device that billions of dollars have been spent by some of the biggest companies in the world to do one thing, which is build a renewable energy device that works 24/7. No one has been able to do that until now. And so not only is this device 24/7 wind-based, but what's amazing about it is the byproduct is millions and millions of gallons of pure potable water per unit per year, which means you can literally stick this device in the middle of the Sahara Desert and you have electricity and water. It can change third world countries into amazing, they can compete in the world order. Anyway, we've been putting this together. You're going to be seeing a lot about this. It's going to change the planet. And so I'm just very lucky to be a part of this big thing.
How did you come across this think tank and
Well,
become part of it?
I had done a nonprofit thing And after a big successful thing, after it was over, the head of the nonprofit, I said, you know, if there's anything you need, you know, call me up, let me know if I can help with anything. And so he introduced me to this gentleman. He calls me up and says, Brian, I want you to come down to San Diego and I want you to meet somebody. Plan on spending the day. I go, well, who is it? What is it about? I can't tell you. If you don't come down, I can't tell you. So that intrigued me. So I went down to San Diego, spent the day with this guy, saw these computer screens and all this technology, and I got, I have to be involved in this. And so I was the first investor in this whole thing. And from that, it's evolved into something very, I mean, it's life-altering. And so that's what I've been really focusing on. As a matter of fact, Larry is also part of this thing, believe it or not.
Yeah, actually, Brian's being really nice. He's a really smart guy. He really is. And he sees things, as I was saying to you guys earlier, that nobody else sees. He won't tell you, but I will. He came, remember those removable tattoos, those things you put on last about a week or two ago? Him! That's him. He's the one who brought that to the market. Yeah, and this device, I'll say it a different way. It's incredible. It only does two things. It makes water and power. That's all it does. It's about the size of a gas station, and it powers your whole neighborhood. So look out for it in the next couple of years, because it's going to take the world by storm, because it's clean energy. You guys are smart. I can talk to you like you are. Most technology only makes two things: what it's supposed to make, and then what it doesn't really make so good. Like nuclear power makes the heck out of some energy, but it also makes the heck out of some nuclear rods that you got to hide for 300,000 years. Same thing with coal, good and bad. This is the first device that only makes two things: water and power, and hopefully we can help change lives around the planet.
You guys should be filming this as it evolves. Make a documentary as it evolves.
It is in the works, my dear.
Okay, good. Donald, aside from creating beer, what are some of your passions, and what do you geek out about?
I'm a kept man, and I'm the daddy to a 5-year-old.
Yay, now that's a real job.
63. My wife works her heart out, and daddy stays home, takes care of the baby, and I pick her up and take her to school. And she's the most cutest thing. I actually have older kids too. I have a 32-year-old son who's in the ATF in Los Angeles, and I have a 27-year-old daughter who is a nurse at a cardiac emergency care unit. And then we have Olivia. And so mommy works really hard in Chicago, and daddy goes to the gym and takes care of the baby. That's my passion. My Olivia's my passion.
And I want to throw in that Don and I did a convention in Chicago, so Olivia came to visit Daddy at work. And Olivia and I played all afternoon on Sunday when everything got really quiet and there was nobody coming up to the table. The two of us, she invented some game. And we played for hours, the two of us running around. And, oh God, it was so much fun.
So when I was leaving to do this, and she loves Curtis now, he's like her best friend. And as I was leaving, she goes, "Daddy, I'm coming with you." And I said, "We're not doing it in Chicago, honey. Daddy's got to fly away." She goes, "Well, I can fly with you." And I said, "You're always going to take care of mommy." So she finally said it was okay, but she definitely misses her Curtis. That's for sure.
Aww.
That's cool.
And Larry, aside from working on this project with Brian for the clean energy, what are you passionate about? What do you geek out about?
I'm passionate about a couple things. My passion runs in 7-year waves. So I taught acting for about 7 years because I really wanted to figure out and develop a new system called the 4-month workout, which can teach the newer folks how to absorb acting in a quicker time, because if you know anything about the younger folks, they got a lot of time, don't they? Yeah, right. They want it yesterday. So I tried to figure out something that would help them, can't make it yesterday, but help them get to that level faster than the usual time. I'm also a daddy. I got 2 sons. One I went half on. The other one is still mine. He's step, but he can't sleep outside. Outside. And I have a wonderful girl who loves the heck out of me. She's sitting in the audience. I'm not going to embarrass her, but she's sitting there to the right with a polka hat, and she loved me, and I love her too. And I'm also acting again. So I did if you guys who watch Adult Swim, look out for a show called Black Jesus. I'm in it, and it's a crazy show. The guy who directed behind it also, his name is Rusty Cundiff. You guys know anything, a film called Fear of a Black Hat. He also is behind Dave Chappelle. If you like any of that stuff, you'll like this crazy comedy. And my head's back in the ring for acting and directing and producing, and just I love life, man. This is really, really cool to do these things and be able to come up and still do it and be daddy. That's really the coolest thing.
Well, we're all glad you're here, but please also tell me that you play Jesus.
No. I do not play like Jesus. That's already been cast. But I do play a guy named Clancy, and all I tell you is that I'm in a wheelchair and I got a gun.
Okay. You won me over. I'll definitely watch. Julia, how about you?
I am about to be an empty nester, which is really terrifying. I've got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, and so I'm like freaking out. And I've started acting again and doing all that. I've also become a realtor because I need clients that can be my children, so I can take care of them and find them a special place because I've got to do something with my time. So yeah.
That's great. And Curtis?
I'm still a book nerd, as I was as a kid. I'm still a book collector, and that is sort of a hobby. I work with a feminist organization in Los Angeles called the Feminist Majority Foundation, which I've been working with for about 20 years on various projects. And I have a daughter. I'm married to a writer, Elaine Aronson, who's been writing for years for many TV shows. And my daughter Lily is just starting studying her master's at Oxford.
Wow. Congratulations.
She got all the brains, actually, so, from her mother.
And Robert, what are your passions?
I am passionate about playing the guitar. I always have been. One of the highlights of Nerds in Tucson was there was a two-piece group at the Hilton Lounge, and they would let me sit in with them, which I really enjoyed. It took about a week and a half to convince them I could play the guitar. Finally they let me sit in with them, and they said, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" So I thought, okay, that's good. I'm also passionate about racing cars, but I stopped racing in 2002, and I recently got reunited with this team called the Lotus Sport Team. And this weekend they're racing in Daytona, which is where I thought I was going to be, because this convention was last weekend. So I had that a little bit off.
Well, we're glad you made it. Are you
I'm
guys?
really glad I'm here, and you folks are great.
Did you guys enjoy this panel? Yeah. Why don't you give these guys one more big round of applause? Stand up, guys. Come on. Andrew, Brian, Donald, Mary, Julia, Curtis, and Robert, the cast of Revenge of the Nerds. Thank you guys so much.